Welcome to the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G. This podcast is all about connecting the community with the thought leaders of business and entertainment in the cannabis industry. As this industry expands and becomes more and more mainstream, we want to educate and entertain our listeners and become your choice and voice for all things cannabis. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show. Have you visited MJ.com? MJ.com is the online destination where you can find everything you need to know about the emerging legal marijuana industry. Where else can you find the latest original content, news, and trends? Connect to a local doctor to obtain your medical marijuana card, receive exclusive brand savings, and have your favorite product delivered straight to your front door? MJ.com has it all. Go check them out. Welcome to another episode of the Pot Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G, and today our special guest is Mr. Noah Mendelsohn. He is the head of business development for the Northstar Financial Consulting Group.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, yeah. Awesome, man. Let me give a little background on the company, and then I want to get into your personal background. So just to tell everyone out there, Northstar has over 80 years of combined experience in the cannabis, tech, and entertainment industries. They can be your dedicated financial partner to help grow your business, from accounting, budgeting, cash flow management, to fundraising, investor relations, strategic advisor services, and more. They will provide the support you need. Noah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So why don't you just give everyone a little background on you, how you got into this end of the business, where you came from, and then we'll dive into what Northstar specializes in.
Sure. Thank you. I would start at the very beginning. I feel very fortunate that I have a great father and mentor. And when I was very young, I think to a lot of people's discretion, they'd say I was very young. I said, Dad, I want to try smoking pot. And he said, okay. And he called a friend who rolled me some joints and came over one Friday evening, and we sat in the backyard together and we smoked a joint. And I felt tremendous relief and elation. And it was something that I knew my physiology jived well with. And that started a lifelong journey to explore cannabis and to explore plant medicines. And, I went into studying psychology and therapy and mental health. And that somehow led me to organizational consulting and organizational therapy, where I did my further studies. And that took me straight back into the cannabis industry about 2012, when I hit the ground running and found ways to apply my formal training to an industry that didn't necessarily have a lot of formal structure.
Excellent. So how did you get to Northstar Finance? And why don't you just give us, I kind of did a little mini intro, but tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Sure. Well, Northstar Financial is one of the premier CFO and accounting outsourced firms based out of here in Beverly Hills, California. And the purpose of Northstar, the main goal, is to support cannabis companies' growth, where they have teams that usually are comprised of master growers and cultivators and distributors and brokers. It's very unlikely that in the traditional legacy cannabis space, you're going to find accountants and CFOs and bookkeepers. And so what we wanted to do was provide that set of skills and those set of tools to the companies that wouldn't necessarily have them otherwise. And we also wanted to do it at a very competitive price rate, because with all the legislation and everything going on right now, companies in the cannabis space are operating on thin margins. And so what we'd like to help them do is continue to scale without the burden of building out a team that they don't really have the experience to build or manage. So I came into Northstar just a few years ago when Lorenzo was really driving the cannabis business, and he knew that I had experience in the space, and he brought me on board, and it's been wonderful ever since.
So what are some of the mistakes that new business owners in the cannabis industry make where they would need some of your services? Or what have you seen diving into some of your clients' businesses that you went, whoa, you're either going too fast or too slow here? Can maybe give some examples of what a newbie, the kind of obstacles they may face?
Sure. I think when you say newbie, though, there's a lot of different kinds of newbies in cannabis. There's the kind of newbie who have been in the space, like I said, legacy, traditional market, and have been doing this for decades. And they're newbies to the actual regulated space. And then on the other side, you have people who are experienced business mavens, but have no real connection to cannabis. And they don't know about the culture, and they might not have experience with the regulatory landscape that we specialize in. And so whether a person's a newbie in the technical side, where you'll find a lot of their mistakes are going to be record keeping, management, knowing how to use the data to to have pro formas and forward-thinking plans, or whether it's the kind of person who has all of that technical skill set, but doesn't necessarily have the cannabis acumen to know how to approach the community or know how to approach the specific tax situations that, every state changes, on an almost monthly basis we see. So Newbie can apply to a lot of things, and we try and support each company in the way that they need, as opposed to a cookie cutter model.
Yeah, you just made a huge distinction that I think is important for everyone to understand. As this industry is growing and has been, somewhat new over the last few years, as far as mainstream goes, I think there were a lot of people that were successful in other business types or other industries and thought they could just jump into cannabis and raise a bunch of money and be successful. And they hit different roadblocks based on what you just described. And their cash flow, their burn rate was exorbitant. And a lot of them just went down quick. So I think you made a great distinction there. So, all right, let's take it from 2 points of view. So I just started, I'll say newbie again. I'm new into the cannabis industry. I come from another industry, and I just said, okay, I'm going to get a license, whatever it is in the state where I am. And all of a sudden I'm going to start a retail business. How do I need my hand held as opposed to a clothing shop that I used to run?
I think the number one obstacle people in that position will face is not having the connection or the integration with the community. And so for that sort of individual, their team desperately needs, if they're cultivating, they need a master grower who has brought many, many crops to harvest and knows how to navigate the complexities of that cultivation. Or if you're going to go to retail, you need to know someone feet on the ground who can determine which products should be held on your shelves, what reasonable pricing is, so that you're not taken advantage of by, this fire hose of sales reps coming in through every dispensary door every day. I would say you need to have someone on your team who can give you insider information and expert advice based on their own experiences.
Okay, now let's take it from the other point of view. I have a brand, I have a cannabis brand, I've got some background, but now I've kind of hit the ceiling on my reach and my success. I have a little initial success, but I'm having trouble scaling. Do you help with that as well?
Of course. Yeah. For those individuals, and that's been a good chunk of the early business I brought to Northstar, was teams of people who have experience in the space, but just don't have the tools to grow in a regulated format. And so for those people and for those companies, what we do is provide the structure and tools and expert guidance so that they can take those skills and the things that they're very successful with and apply it to the mainstream regulated market, which ordinarily wouldn't have space for, I would say, the kind of negotiations that have been happening traditionally for all the years that the cannabis market has been existing.
Now, does your company work just in California where you're located, or do you work with companies anywhere throughout the country?
Oh, we're nationwide. We have clients all around the country. And right now I'm personally pushing for a lot of international exploration. There's a lot going on in the world. And I believe the green revolution is one that the entire planet should engage in.
Now, what are your feelings? Obviously, we all hoped and believed that marijuana legalization would have been a hot button topic with this year's presidential election. So I'm not choosing sides or anything. What are your hopes for whoever wins over the next year or two, once we get over this pandemic and some of the other priorities? When do you think cannabis legalization will get back to the forefront of people's discussion in the political arena?
I don't like to discuss politics personally, but I think just as far as the industry and the cannabis world in general, it's the money that's going to determine the mainstream appeal and the attention. And there's no question that as states begin to legalize, there is a huge cash flow passing through these regulated entities, the dispensaries and the cultivators. And so as more states, like we just see Missouri just opened up, Virginia just opened up, it's going to be an uphill battle. But my personal hope is that forget legalization, we need full decriminalization. This is a plant, this is a medicine, this is something that is far less harmful than a litany of other objects or substances that you can buy in your store on a regular basis. And so I think if people are given access to it, it'll ease the burden from a lot of the other things that we find are plaguing our society. And to the political side of it, we'll definitely see a lot more money coming through the government and through taxation so that we can reinfuse our communities, hopefully with some good projects.
Yeah, and Basically, for anyone listening to this, depending on when you're listening, we're recording this about 2 weeks before the 2020 presidential election. So that was the reason for my question. As far as companies now, obviously it's hard to market. You can't do traditional advertising. You can't get traditional banking or fundraising. How do you see the companies that have successfully raised funds or raised capital? How have they accomplished that?
They have accomplished it through the sort of work Northstar does as our MO, which is making sure everyone we engage with is investor ready and audit ready. And so what that means is you have to have immaculate books, you have to have fantastic records, you have to have professionals managing all of your accounts and all of your cost accounting, so that if the government comes knocking, or on the contrary, if an investor comes knocking, you can put your best foot forward and show them with complete transparency, this is what we're doing. And we saw that that was the case with Harborside up in the Bay Area. And they weren't penalized for some accounting errors that happened in 280E. And they weren't penalized because they were showing good faith. And I think that's the attitude that we all take, trying to do the best we can with the complexities of the regulatory landscape. And we'll keep moving forward until hopefully, like I said, we see deschedulized cannabis in our world.
Now, I know your company has been doing some wonderful things for the cannabis companies that were affected by the fires out west. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been devastating to the market out here to see how many farmers and cultivators and manufacturers have just had to up and leave their sites and their facilities because of all these fires. And while there isn't much we can do directly, we're not firefighters, we wanted to devote everything we could to try and supporting these individuals and these companies through the hardship. And so Lorenzo had graciously offered a significant number of free hours to any companies or any entities or individuals who have been affected by the fires. We want to support you in any way. Give us a call. We'll schedule something and we'll make sure that you know we have your back.
That's beautiful. Excellent. Kudos to you guys for that. So where can people find out more about your company, either online, on social, or email, however the best way to find and contact you guys?
Sure. Obviously, we're a Google away, Northstar Financial in Beverly Hills. If you want to check our website, it's nstarfinance.com. And that's the same for our Instagram, IG, Nstar Finance.
Great. So before we let you go, Noah, give us one thing that concerns you about the overall cannabis industry and one thing that excites you.
My concern is, I think it's a good thing that I have to reach for a concern right now. I'm not really concerned about a lot. I think there's a lot that we need to be wary of, but like they say, you prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. I'm concerned with the time it's taking to reach a place of healthy access. When we had Prop 215, I think we were stepping in the right direction. I think most people have found Prop 64 to be a backward step. So I think my concerns are the legislative regulatory landscapes. What I'm most excited for is that now that cannabis is becoming less taboo and the stigma is being addressed, we're able to talk about this miraculous plant more openly. And I've found myself able to engage the discussion with older family members, community members, people who ordinarily would never talk about cannabis and are now, on the contrary, coming to me and seeking advice and seeking guidance of how they can incorporate it into their lives. And so I'm very excited to see more people seeing how their endocannabinoid system reacts to the different cannabinoids on the market and hopefully finding relief and higher quality of life.
Fantastic. Noah Mendelsohn, Head of Business Development for Northstar Finance. Thank you so much for taking the time and being our guest today. And everyone, go check them out. We'll have all their info in the show notes as usual. Thank you, Noah.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
All right. And we will see everyone next time on the Pot Live podcast. If you are into the recreational side of the cannabis industry, yes, stoners, I'm talking to you, then thepot.com is the online and mobile destination for you. That's right, THEPOT.com, thepot.com. Where else can you find the exclusive Pot Mate of the Month? Take a pot quiz and win prizes. Scroll through hilarious memes and jokes and check out the latest podcasts, news, and trends, all while having your own profile and voice in the pot.com forum. Visit thepot.com today and get lit.